Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. I'm your host today, Mo, and I'm joined with President and CEO of Noble Gold Investments. Collin has spent over 15 years helping clients safeguard their wealth, especially through alternative investments like gold and silver. He started as the top broker at the U.S. and quickly rose through the ranks to become head of the country's most trusted gold IRA firm. We're going to explore today the success of leadership and his philosophy and what has driven it. So, buckle in. Here we go. Collin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, and I guess my bio is a little old because that's when I started Noble Gold.
Okay.
Now, so I've been in commercial real estate, and I've been in the precious metals business for 16 years. So I've actually been protecting wealth for over 20 years, which feels sort of strange to say, but yeah, I've been doing physical investments for about 20 years, and had an interesting life journey of trying to find my way into the world, and was in significant debt and health problems, and really was lucky to come out of it with a kind of an incredible journey of where I am today.
Yeah, well, let's start right there. I'd love to hear about it. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit of where you came from, how you got to where you are today, and what are some of the highlights of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking back on my 20s, the thing that I didn't realize was I was in significant pain for for a long time, even before that. But it really started to hit me in my 20s, and it started to affect everything in my life. It started to affect my work, my health, my relationships. I had, and within 5 years of that time period, I've had both my hips replaced, had reconstructive surgery on my foot, which was all things that I should have done earlier on in my life. And once I started to do those things and get my health back in order, things became clearer and easier. So I always tell people that, and men are classic examples of just like pushing off, nagging and not addressing the issue. But I think what happened for me, which was lucky, is I met my wife, and she really sort of saw that she could help me get focused on my health. And that was the beginning part of my journey. But when I met my wife, I was six figures in debt, credit card, tax debt, not clear on a vision. I'd had some experience that I used later in my life. I'd worked in commercial real estate, I'd worked in insurance business. So I learned a lot from really smart people, but wasn't able to really use all of my experience and talent to do anything because my health wasn't in the right place. So yeah, so I think, the thing that I learned the most was like really focusing on my health consistently, which is something I do all the time. And then in the last few years, I've actually added another element, which I gave up drinking almost 2 years ago, and that's added a whole other level of clarity and able to kind of deal with the day to day in a better way. So I would say my real journey started in health and recovering and really focusing on my health day to day. And, now I meditate and really just focus on right foods, right energy. And really, I think that shifted a lot of things in my early.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I know being a broker, from what I've seen in the movies, is always a pretty stressful job. So, is being a broker as stressful as it sounds?
Well, I think when I got into commercial real estate, I learned from the people that own commercial real estate in this country on a mass scale are the really fascinating people, because most of them, the ones that I worked with, were immigrants who came to the United States, built some kind of business, and then realized that they needed to put their money into real estate. And so these were really successful entrepreneurs, really creative thinkers, people that just they didn't accept like how things were. They'd see an opportunity and they'd build upon it. So I was able to be around these people. And that was part of the reason that I got into commercial real estate. Is I just wanted to be around. I wanted to be in the room with some of the smartest people that are out there, and I learned from them, and I was able to take lunches with them. And I think even though I didn't have massive success there, my success was learning how these people thought and really being around these kind of creative thinkers. And yeah, there's some stress behind it. But in commercial real estate, the good thing about that business is that it's all just a numbers game, right? That what I learned is that the buyers and sellers, everything was numbered, nothing was emotional. Whereas in residential, you are dealing with more emotion because it's someone's home and it's something where they're going to, build their family and lay their head at night. So yes, there was stress behind it, but really it's a business. And so as long as you realize that it was just a business and you sort of took yourself out of it, and it's all just transactions and zeros, and it became less stressful. The stressful part about being commercial real estate is the deals take a long time and there's so many, potential pitfalls. I remember one of the deals that I had in escrow right before I left the business. It was a shopping center in Los Angeles, and I got a call from my partner, and the weekend before we were going to close, the shopping center caught on fire. So we were going to close.
Man,
We were in escrow for 6 months. I worked on that deal for about a year, and I was expecting a pretty good paycheck, and it caught on fire. And actually, what I learned also in that is that the buyer had a huge opportunity because there was insurance. And so he could have bought it, taken the insurance, and rebuilt it, but he got scared. And what ended up happening was the owner was so happy that this guy, balked on the deal. He ended up kicking all the tenants out, putting in two national tenants, 7-Eleven and another national tenant in there. And the property was actually within a year and a half was worth double than what he was going to sell it for. And
wow.
so I think the thing that I learned the most was that the seller was seasoned and he saw an opportunity to really create value, and the insurance was a big win for him. The buyer saw it as he was afraid. He was afraid he was going to lose his money. He didn't know what was going to happen. And so it was really interesting to see how these two successful people looked at the same situation in a much different way. And I think all of those experiences helped me when I transitioned into the precious metals business. Is I just realized that there's a lot of different ways to look at a business, and there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And so when I started Noble Gold, which is the company that helped me get out of debt and really change my life, I wanted to build a business that had a incredible core, a brand, but I also wanted to build it to last. And we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary next year, and we've sold over $2 billion in gold and silver. I mean, real gold and silver, not like a stock or a fund, like legitimately shipping gold and silver or storing gold and silver. We've done over $2 billion in that, which is the most that anybody's done in such a short amount of time. We're competing with companies that have been in business for 25, 30 years that have done the same amount in transactions. So I think what I learned is like really focusing on the brand, and then really focusing on building a great team, hiring the right people, building them up, creating a culture. We have incredible retention. We have 95% retention at the company in terms of employees. So it's been a really interesting ride. It's still very interesting even to this day. But I think I learned a lot being in commercial real estate and just being around some really smart, successful, creative people.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. As being in commercial real estate, like you said, dealing with a lot of people, learning about people, and then you become a CEO of your own company. Now you're in charge of people. You need to take care of them. How was that shift? What was the most challenging leadership adjustment that you had to make?
I think that the biggest adjustment early on that I made was learning that even though you're the owner and you're going to wear multiple hats, most people can't wear multiple hats. And I think having clear job descriptions, having a clear vision for different parts of the company, as soon as I did that and I didn't have people doing 10 different jobs, we scaled. We did much better. I just think most people want to have a clear vision. So early in 2020, as the pandemic hit, we hired a company called Guardian Payroll and Guardian HR, and they helped me get a foundation. They helped me clean up my handbook. They helped me put job descriptions together. They helped me just really create a strong foundation for employees, and that was instrumental during the pandemic because we went from working in an office to remote, and we went from having 12 employees to 45 employees. And so we couldn't have,
Wow.
yeah, the business really scaled. We couldn't have done any of that without having that foundation in place and making sure that we were doing everything legally and by the book. And so that was a really instrumental part of our journey. And actually, interestingly enough, the owner of that business came to me about 2.5 years ago, and a friend of mine and myself bought into that HR outsourcing and payroll business. So I'm actually an owner of that business now because I saw what it did for me, right? I saw that
Right.
it was almost like the hair club for men, right? Like I was using the product, so I felt about it.
Yeah.
So it was a journey where I knew if I took care of people during the pandemic, which we did, like if anybody had to go to the doctor, anybody had to go to the hospital, anyone had anything, you didn't even, you sent a message and you went. And we built really good connections to our employees. We were checking in on them, and we went through all the things that everybody went through. It was like, we had employees, relatives die. We had a lot of depression, a lot, people were home alone. We would deal with that. We'd reach out to people. So we built this bond during the pandemic. And I think that was one of the biggest learning lessons for me is that people will stay at a company, and work for you. And if you just, show that you're around and you care and you build a good foundation for them, which we did, and we continue to do. And so I think that was the biggest, learning lesson for me is that if you put the foundation in place in your business and you take care of your people, typically the business will thrive and do well. And that's exactly what happened.
I'd love to hear more about that foundation. What are the core values that drive the way that you lead your team and how you interact with clients and how you teach your team to interact with clients as well?
Well, I always say that no matter what position anybody is at Noble Gold, is that we all are working together, whether you're in sales or management, everyone has a job, whether that job makes a little bit more money or makes a little less, it doesn't really matter. Like everybody has to have a job. So we do a lot of team building. We were doing it a lot through Zoom, but we were like doing these events through Zoom. We were doing them every month during the pandemic where we would just get on and we'd play fun games and we would just interact with each other. So there was a connection, even though we were all working remotely. So that was one of the things we really focused on was just trying to build culture in the best way that we could in that challenging time. The core value for me is that I'm a family person. And I say this in every interview is that family's first and health is first. And just like I said, I realized that I made a big mistake in my 20s and didn't really focus on my health, and it led to a lot of things happening where I was, my relationships weren't great, and I just didn't have the right kind of life. So we really preach and believe and talk about that if you have something going on, you go to the doctor. We focus on people. We even, we send messages out, have you checked your teeth? Have you checked we do all this stuff. We remind people.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think people have, it's resonated and we've built a, really, really good bond. And I think a lot of it is that, if people know that you care about them as a human and that, then I think that they will continue to kind of help you build your mission, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, it comes down to me and my business, but like if all those people don't believe in it, it doesn't matter. Like if everyone's going in different directions or, I've read these stories about people working two jobs at the same time and all these weird things that are happening. So if you have that culture happening where people don't feel connected to what you're doing, you're never going to grow. It's just not going to work. So I really focus on that and really focus on just building that kind of energy within the company that everybody has a buy-in and we pay bonuses and I have 4Ks and health, all the stuff that even early on when we had 12 employees I had a 401k and I had health insurance and I had all that stuff. So it was important for me to build a place where people felt like they could grow and they could have a healthy life now and also in the future because obviously the 401k, it really helps them later on, right? It's not going to help me. It's really for them, and we put money in there for them. So these are all things that I think are really important.
Yeah.
Building.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you said you went from 12 employees to 45. That's a pretty significant jump. So what do you do to intentionally build leaders within Noble Gold so that you can sustain that type of growth?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you have a organization chart, and you really are clear about exactly what everybody's responsible for. And I always try to hire from within first, and I've been lucky. So I've had most of my leadership positions. were like people that started low and then worked their way up over the last 4 or 5 years. My director of sales was a salesperson. My head of IRA was an IRA person. My head of buybacks was a buyback. Like they all moved into that position. So we were able to grow together, which I think is really important. And I was able to see their work ethic and like what they're able to do. So I think that's, the most important thing is a lot of times you have talent right under the hood of your, company and you don't even know it. And then I think for me is I'm not a micromanager. I do the meetings, the big meetings with the leaders in the company, but I let them communicate and I don't step on people's toes unless there's a situation I really have to. But I think that if you undermine your leaders, the staff knows. Then they don't trust their leaders and then they don't believe in their leaders. What I've always done is like if I have an issue with an employee and I see something happening, I'll go to the leader and I'll tell the leader to talk to them about it. And I've always done that. And I've always done that in every business. And I think that's part of the reason that I was able to buy into these two new businesses because I have two new partners in these businesses is that I told them my structure of management and how I do it, and that made them more comfortable because partnerships can be rough and a lot of partnerships end up in a bad place. But I laid out my management style of them is that if they have somebody underneath them, I'm not going to undercut them. I'm going to go to them first. And I think as long as everybody feels like they have the responsibility and you're not stepping on toes, you can really build a good culture. And I think we've built a good culture to this point, and people are happy. And I've had employees leave because of whatever happened, and they've come back. We had an employee recently come back that was with us for a few years and then left, and then realized that this is a better place to work. So I think that's been my style.
I'm hearing macromanaging, letting people have autonomy, getting things done. If I were to ask somebody on your team, what's the culture at the company? What do you think they'd say?
I think it's fun. I think it's a sales and marketing organization, so you're going to have a lot of chatty, interesting people. I think I think people enjoy working with us. I think they like each other. I think some of them have built relationships over Slack because they have never met in person, but they have these kind of bonds. And I think it's an environment where people, they like coming into work. They like the work. Precious metals are once they learn about it, they really feel good about it. And obviously, the price of gold and silver has done everything that I thought it would do, and so that's great too because everyone that bought from us in 2020, 21, 22, 23, they've really profited and they've made more money with us than they've made in the stock market. Now, I couldn't have predicted that, but we've gold has outperformed the S&P for the last 5 years. It's outperformed most indexes. So it's nice that when clients come back and if they need to sell and they need to do stuff with their life, that they're in a really high profit position. And so I think that's been great. Also, our industry is unregulated, but we're a company that really monitors what we do, and we sort of regulate ourselves, even though we're in the gold business a little bit of the wild wild west. So they know that they're working for a company that is doing the best for their clients. And when we say we're going to do something, we do it. So I think it's a place where from sales to marketing or anywhere, that I'm going to stand. If I say something, I'm going to do it and I'm going to stand by it. And I think that gives them peace of mind that we're going to continue to do the right things for clients. And that makes it a good working environment too, because a lot of sales and marketing organizations, I think that they don't always realize that if you cut corners, if you don't do things the right way, everybody knows, right? Like there's no hiding it at a company. And so we really focused on really making sure that if we say we're going to do something, that we actually do it and we do it really well. Like right now, we can ship metals anywhere in the United States in a week, and we do. If someone sends us a wire today, they could have a tracking number in 2 days, which means they'll have the metals in a few days. Like nobody can do that. Before we came out and said we could do that, I had to make sure we could do it, right?
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, we couldn't do it because shipping was kind of strange, right? So but yeah, so it's just little things. I think it resonates with employees and also our clients.
Yeah, you're in a really unique industry because you work with people's life savings.
Yeah.
So, how do you lead with integrity? How do you build long term trust with clients? I'm hearing a little bit of it. And it sounds like your clients really trust you. How do you build those relationships?
Well, I think it's the first thing is, and someone early on told me, a marketing person told me on, is like, if you're gonna, if this is your mission, then you should put your face out there. That you should get on interviews like yours. You should get out there as much as humanly possible. And I think that was great advice because a lot of the owners of businesses that aren't doing things the right way will hide, right? They're not willing to go on a show. They're not. So they said, like,
Right.
want to buy from people. And so if you get out in front of this and say, hey, we're here. This is what we do. We're a good company. We're going to do what we say. We're not a high pressure organization. You should just get out there and tell that story. And that's what I've been doing for the past, almost 10 years. Is just I'm out there and I'm a thought leader in the space. So I think that's been really important, is just getting out in front, and and getting that message out to the world. I think that's helped us really kind of grow during that time period. And then I think I've just hired really high integrity people. Like, our sales staff is really unique in that they work together. They do have the client's best interests. I mean, they're sales and they want to close sales like any business, but we turn away a lot of business that we just don't feel is right. Like, if somebody's, you know, in a certain position and they only have, $500 for their name, we're going to tell them, no, this isn't the right thing for you. Right. Like, you have to have like long-term thinking in that this could take 3, 5, 10 years to grow. So if you tell people when we do the sale, like, if you can't do this for 3, 5, 10 years, like, do not buy this. Don't think you're going to buy this today and then double your money tomorrow or in a week or 6 months. Like, you have to have this vision. So we've created this culture of like, listen, anything can happen. You know what you're buying. Here's what it is. Here's the pricing. But you have to have realistic expectations. And I think that's helped us. Some organizations just sell and they sell you bill of goods, and really we don't have control over the gold market. We don't have control over the silver market. We have ideas of where it could go, but we don't control those things. So we want to set realistic expectations. And I think in the sales space, you don't always find those things happening. I think people are so worried about that one sale. What I've tried to build the culture of is like, we do a lot of volume. We're going to be around a long time, and don't just focus on one sale.
So, Colin, what leadership skills are most important for navigating disruptive change like we saw with the pandemic? How do you prepare people for that?
Well, I think a few things. I think number one, I mentioned building a foundation in your employee practices is really important. But the other thing is having a playbook for every position. You should have a playbook for every position in your company. You should be able to build that out. When you get into a company day one, if you're going to hire another person to do a similar job, like, you should be able to hand them something and go, hey, or, digitally, or maybe have them watch videos. Like, it's really employees over the first 60, 90 days, know the culture, know their job, learn about it, and you can give them all that information. And if you don't have that, you should build that. Those are the two biggest things: is having the right foundation with your handbook and rules and procedures and getting that structured, and then also making sure the job is really, every position is really clear cut of your expectations. If you have KPIs that you want an employee to hit, that they know what those KPIs are. These are all the things that you should really focus on early. And I think as a leader, if you're asking me, like, what is a leader, is someone that is going to create that culture and then hold people accountable to that, and creating timelines. Because at the end of the day, in this competitive world, if you go after a 60 or 30 or whatever timeline, and you don't hit that, as an employee to employer relationship, you want to know, like, hey, we didn't hit this goal. Why didn't we hit this goal? Let's have a conversation about it, and do at whatever we can to get there. And that's what a leader does. A leader doesn't go, hey, I looked at the books and we're down, and what's going on, or hey,
Right.
it's really important that people are clear on what their objectives are in every position in the company. So that's the key to being a leader. There's a lot of tools to do this nowadays, but it's kind of the hard work. It's kind of like it's a silly thing, but my someone with my kids, I have, 3 kids, young kids, and someone said, the mornings are hard. We were, it's so hard to get them dressed and that. And someone just said, why don't you just put them in the clothes they're going to wear to school the night before? So we've been doing that, and so maybe they're not dressed so
Yeah.
sophisticated, but it saved us, 10, 15 minutes per kid to get them dressed, right? And the stress. that one thing. And then I was like, okay, well, we should just do their lunches the night before. And then so it's like anything you can do to prepare yourself for success in your business is what you should do. Whether you're a startup or, you just have an idea and you just start the bit, you should still be,
Right.
okay, if I hire a person to do marketing, what are my goals? Like set those goals in place so that you're not just going, well, we need more business and well, what does that mean? Like, what is that? What's your acquisition cost? Like all these things that you should be thinking about, you have to put on paper and hand it to somebody and go, okay, this is my expectation. Can you do it or not? Because then it's fair, right? Then it's a fair job. Then when they hit it and they surpassed it, you're their cheerleader. If they don't hit it, then you got to really, figure out what happened. I think that's the kind of culture that people want to be in, and that's the culture of a leader is creating that foundation that they feel good about.
And I'm looking at a couple of the books that you wrote. One is Silver is the New Oil.
Right.
Another one is Mission Matters. Can you tell me what inspired you to write those books, and what has it done for you in this space?
Mission Matters is really I just got a chapter in a book with other leaders, and I just talked sort of about my journey, what I told you earlier about my life, and kind of my vision. The Silver is a New Oil is a book about silver as a commodity, and I wrote that because everybody talks about gold and they just forgot about silver. So I
Absolutely.
wanted to paint the story of what I think silver is going to do, all the industrial uses, all the potential, why people haven't been talking about it. So I just wanted to do a book that I don't think was really service. I don't think people talk about silver as much. And listen, it came out last December. That book hit #1 in commodities really quickly. And I think part of it was that nobody writes a silver book. Mostly they write about gold. So
That's right.
sort of like, hey, what is this book about silver? So I think that it's done great. I think it's been good for educating clients. And I'm working on another book that I think is going to be a little bit more about my personal journey, and I'm going to talk about my health and some of the foundation stuff and my sobriety and all those things. So I'm working on the second book, but I think it's open up doors in terms of just once you write a book, people will sort of elevate you as more of an authority. So, but there's a lot more that I have in the can that I just haven't gotten to.
Colin, what are some of the daily habits and disciplines that have helped you stay sharp and lead at such a high level?
Most businesses are leads. Most businesses are marketing. I watch that every day. I look at that. I also have I always have a budget for creative opportunities in marketing. You do have to take some chances and test new waters. I think that the most important thing is as a leader is to make sure that you're receiving all the reports and a lot of through CRMs and things that you can just automatically set up. You just want to be looking at those things, I think, weekly, to get a feel of where your business is going to go. If things are going up in a certain direction, you want to know because like maybe there's more opportunity. And I think the thing that I did a lot that was really key to my success is that especially through marketing is when we get a win, we would just keep doubling down and tripling down and we would keep growing that channel in whatever way, whether it was YouTube or influencers or TV, we would just kind of keep scaling. And, I think part of it was was not afraid of that risk. I think the thing with marketing that I find a lot of times is that people think it's an expense that doesn't pay. But if you're doing marketing the right way, like you should get 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12x what you're spending. And it does take time. But when you do it the right way and you do the right branding and you build it the right way, you can really grow a business. And I think every business comes down to mostly marketing. If you can drive traffic and leads and interest, most of the time everything else works itself out. So yeah, I think that's been a big part of my success. Even if you have the best product in the world, if nobody knows about it, it doesn't matter. And it always goes back. And I don't know if you are, but like I don't know if you remember VCR and beta.
Absolutely.
Beta was better, right? Beta was a better technology. The clarity was
Yeah.
good, but they had no marketing and they had no money. So VCR beat that. It's exactly that case study is exactly proof in marketing and in the world. It doesn't matter. You could have the best product in the world. It literally doesn't matter if no.
Colin, are there any books, mentors, philosophies that have shaped your leadership?
Well, I think my wife uh, has been a great We make a lot of the decisions together. I think you have to have. I've had a lot of people say like, "Oh, I listen to this person and I listen to that person." The problem is, and I'm not saying you shouldn't. You should read and you should do podcasts. Problem is that day to day, you're going to have decisions that you have to make. And I'm very lucky that I have my really close friend, Noah, who's also our attorney. He's a really smart business person. My wife, and I have a few other people. I have a CFO friend who's raised like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I just ask him a question here or there. And I just go, hey, because day to day, like the podcast is not going to address your specific issue typically.
Right.
You have to make a decision. Do I do this? Do I hire this person? Do I fire this person? Whatever I'm going to do, I have this idea. Like you need those sounding boards, and a lot of times, I take the advice, and there's sometimes I don't, and I don't. But I like. I think people are afraid to get negative. I'm not afraid. I want you to tell me what the things that I'm doing are wrong, and I want the reasoning behind it, and I need that. I need to digest that. So, I think it's finding like friends that are successful. I think getting in front of I think the thing about commercial real estate was the most successful thing that happened to me there was that I realized that there's really smart people, creative people, and if you're in the room with them, you're going to learn. And so when I became CEO, I just tried to find close relationships that I could ask questions to, and I continue to do that. And that has been the most helpful for me more than anything is just being open to that criticism and reaching out and saying, "Hey, listen, I know you're busy. Can you just what do you think about this?" And they do, and they always do. Everyone does. And they're not like working for me. They're just like friends that are like, "Oh, let me think about that. Have you thought about this? And you have thought about that?" And it's like you put smarter people around you as a CEO, it's going to help you long term. So I think you got to find mentors that you can really not like mentors that are like, "I'm never going to respond to you." Like you need people that actually your friend like will be willing to, respond back. Cause I think people are like, "Oh, I want this billionaire." And this not like the billionaire, like he's not going to be your mentor. She's not going to be your mentor. You know what I mean? Like you got to find I hate to say it, someone like me, but someone like me that like went from broke to, I'm worth, 30, 40, 50 million bucks, somewhere in that range. Like find someone that's like really done it on their own. I didn't inherit any money. Like everything was built on like just building a business and like taking chances and making mistakes. Like finding someone like me in your area that's running a successful business and like if you can become friends with them and just, hey, listen, I need help and just tell them like, I don't know what to do. I'd love to, I know you're smart. Like tell me. And that's really been helpful for me. And I've surrounded myself with a lot of those people.
Every time I talk to a successful person, they say, I'd love to share my journey. I'd love to share my advice, but nobody asked me. The worst somebody could say is, no, I don't have time for you. And for me, well, maybe not, but you're never going to know unless you ask.
I usually meet with like a friend of a friend at least once a month for coffee and they'll ask me questions and then vice versa. Like I usually one or two meetings a month is
Yeah,
someone that started like I have a friend I just met with these two guys that I've known for a long time. I know their kids, like our kids are friends. They started a business. They had this idea and they wanted it. And I sat with them for, hour and a half and I just gave them my advice. And, I didn't hold back on, I think there's a lot of stuff they need to work on,
sure.
but it's a good idea. I just, told them that I think what I thought and it was great. It was great for both. I mean, I learned a lot about their business. I learned a lot about them. You can learn stuff from those meetings too. I mean, the guy was telling me he's doing a lot of LinkedIn marketing and different things. And so I was asking him about that. So I got stuff out of it too. I think I
Yeah.
helped them in some ways. I think you're right. But you got to prod people that have built a business. Like if it's success and they're running, like they probably want to tell you their story and they probably are available. If they set the business up right, they probably have some time to mentor and I just think you can never stop learning as a business owner. Every day is a challenge. Every day something. I had something happen last week that I've never had happen. It's not a good thing, but it's something I'm gonna deal with. It's all part of it.
So let's say a young leader comes to you, Colin, and says, I know that you're a CEO. I really want to be a leader, but I kind of feel stuck. What's the advice you would give that person?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key to becoming a leader in any organization is that you have to provide way more value to that company and become indispensable. And you have to learn about everything within that company. I think that, what I said earlier about employees typically wanting like a specific, job and it's got to be clear. That's great for that kind of role. But to be CEO, you have to know a good amount about every part in that industry. And there's nothing in there that you have to shy away from. So if you're doing manufacturing, you have to know not only like how to build the product, but you have to know about like the compliance of it. You have to know about you need to be able to look at the P and L and understand the P and L. I think that's the key is like getting educated in terms of like the day to day of a business. A lot of times when people come to me and they go, "Hey, I want your advice," and I go, "Well, listen, let me ask you a question. Do you feel comfortable with me looking at your profit and loss statement? And if I see that, I can kind of get a better grasp of the business.
Yeah.
I can see how much you're spending. If a young person can't read a P&L or doesn't understand a P&L, I would start there. I mean, that's a really important place to start because certain industries have certain quotas or certain areas that should be in a certain line. So for instance, your product development, your R&D should cost you X. Your sales should be X. Your payroll should be X. If you can look at a payroll, a P&L and go, each year we're not spending enough here. Or like, what about this? Like this is what a CEO does, right? I mean, that's really what those are the high level decisions. So I think like learning what a P&L is, being able to decipher it, and knowing in your industry like what the norms are, and then to become a leader to move up within an organization that's already established, you have to add something. You have to come up with an idea that is unique to what the company's already doing. So if the company's having a tailspin, you have to come up with an idea to get them out of that. Or if the company's growing, maybe you figure out a way to save them more money and make them more profitable. I think a lot of times think like they see a company just growing, they think it's super profitable. It may not be super profitable. So just because the top line is growing doesn't mean the net's growing. And so these are the things that I think as a young person, you have to find something that the owner would go, "Oh yeah, I got to keep moving this person up. They brought this idea to me," or "Oh, they've saved me money here," or "They made me money," or "They helped me avoid something." I'll tell you something crazy. When I worked for a guy, it's actually interesting you brought this up. When I worked for another guy in the gold space, he got sued by a bunch of our competitors for false advertising and some other stuff. And he was spending just like an enormous amount of money on lawyer fees. And I was like, well, let me help you somehow. Let me just get in there and I'll do some other stuff and I'll see what you got. And I was like, by the way, do you have an insurance policy? He's like, I don't know. He didn't know. He was like really young guy, just didn't understand. Turns out he had a
Sure.
policy. Turns out my wife's in the insurance business. So I brought the policy to her. She goes, oh my God, I think you have coverage for this lawsuit.
Wow.
And he was spending like 6 figures a month in lawyer fees. Literally within 2 weeks, he filed a claim, fired his attorneys, and they settled it. They settled it, and it was a 7 figure.
Yeah.
It was a massive settlement. So he went from, I think in that year, he lost over a million or million two in lawyer fees to
Gosh.
within an instant. And so when I did that, when we figured that out, it was a really eye-opening experience for me as of like, you just got to keep like pushing through. He was so afraid of the lawsuit. He didn't know what to do. He was confused and he just didn't ask anybody for help. And I just went to him and said, hey, let me help you. The funny part about it is that he made it seem like it was his idea later, but that's a whole other story altogether. But I think what I learned in that is that if you keep peeling away, like you can find opportunities. And also another thing that I think I realized is, really making sure that you're protected with the right policies and procedures in place. But yeah, I added a value that wasn't in my job description. I was just a salesperson. I was a
Yeah.
salesperson, but I just thought like, how can I help you? And I helped him and I got him. And I thought, well, maybe he's going to make me an owner. He didn't do any of that stuff. But then made me think like maybe I need to start my own thing, right? And I did, but I added a value that wasn't in my job description, and I think that's for someone that wants to start their own thing or like move up the ranks, you have to add value that's not in your job description.
That's great. We talk a lot about adding value here, and that really resonates with me and my audience. So I appreciate that. It's such a great story. So leaders out there, Doesn't matter how young or old you are, add value to the company, add value where inside your space, outside your space, but just be proactive. Collin, where can my audience connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah,
What's the best way?
I have a YouTube channel, Noble Gold Investments. So if they want to learn about gold and silver, they can go there and subscribe. Noble Gold Investments is our website. Also, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have 4 businesses. I have a crypto trading platform called mydigitalmoney.com where you can buy crypto, gold, silver in your IRA. Our fees are lower than Coinbase and any of the big ones out there. We've been in business for 5 years. We've never had one data breach. So if anybody's looking to do crypto, mydigitalmoney.com is a great place. And then I mentioned the 2 HR and payroll businesses, Guardian Payroll and Guardian HR. If anybody needs help, we do payroll and HR. So if you're looking for a good system, a system that I use to build my company and protect myself, we can build that structure for you. We do HR outsourcing, legal services included. So all those things there. So any of those places are great or none at all. Maybe just someone thought this was interesting and
Yeah.
hopefully it was helpful to anybody. And I would just say that I really do believe that you have to become an entrepreneur at some point in your life, whether it's early or late. I don't think it matters, but I think the new economy, the way it's set up, is it's geared towards entrepreneurship, and I think the only way that you can sort of like protect yourself in this new economy is to become an entrepreneur, is to kind of take that leap of faith. And I just think the world's changed so much. If this was the 50s, I'd be saying something different. But and in today's world, I think you have to eventually at some point, and it could be you work until you're 50 or 60, and then you become a consultant or you do something. But I do think eventually at some point you're going to have to go out on your own, just the way that's set a tax structure, just the world that is AI. So hopefully this helps everyone on their journey. And I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. Maybe we'll jump on again and talk about, maybe in a year or two, I can talk to you about what's going on with these HR businesses and payroll because it's kind of new to me. But, I'm excited about this opportunity.
We really appreciate it, Collin. To my listeners, make sure you check out Collin. We'll drop all the links in both the audio and video. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. It's free every month. We give you all the good stuff. Collin, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to having you on again. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, brother.